I see it now.
Oh, we're streaming live on Facebook.
Okay. It looks like we are live on Facebook, I hope. So we're going to go ahead and start. Welcome to anybody who is joining us on Facebook and tuning in tonight. I'm Stacy Thurman. I'm the branch manager of the Midway branch of the Woodford County Library, and this is a library-sponsored program. We're very fortunate to have three fun, amazing, witty, wonderful women with us tonight. They are responsible for the cookbook just a few miles south, Timeless Recipes from Our Favorite Places. So we really thank you all. We have Sarah Gibbs, Jeannie Groff, and Ouita Michel. We thank you all for joining us tonight and taking the time to support the library and to help inform our patrons and just spend a little bit of time talking tonight. So the way that this will go, I'll do a little introduction for our three guests, and then we'll answer some questions, have some discussion. And then anybody who's watching on Facebook, if you have questions or comments or things that you would like to add, please feel free to write those in the comments. We have John Crawford from the library that's monitoring those comments, and he will let us know after we have our discussion, and hopefully we can get to those and answer and let everybody know what's going on. So again, thank you ladies for joining us. First we have, I'm just doing an alphabetical order here. We have Sarah Gibbs. I have not met Sarah, but we've emailed a little bit, and she is a former librarian, so I know that she's a wonderful person. She grew up in the mountains of Western Maryland. She has a master's degree in library science from the University of Maryland and worked as a public librarian for 15 years before going to culinary school at Sullivan University in Louisville. She worked at various restaurants in Louisville, including the Brown Foreman Corporate Dining Room and Lynn's Paradise Cafe, before she came to work with Ouita. When Ouita became the chef in residence at Woodford Reserve, Sarah managed the food counter in the visitor center. Her role in the company expanded to include plate costings at all restaurants, recipe archiving, and assisting with new restaurant openings and special events. She retired and moved to Florida with her husband, Tom, who is a writer and a poet, in the fall of 2018, but continued to work remotely on the completion of this cookbook. So thank you, Sarah, for joining us.
Thank you.
We also have Jeannie Groff. Jeannie is Special Projects Director for the Ouita Michel family of restaurants. Jeannie began her career in the newsroom at the Owensboro Messenger Enquirer and worked at several newspapers, including the Lexington Herald Leader, before leaving the industry to raise her 4 children, all graduates of Woodford County High School, Carly, Harper, Grayson, and Leela. Ouita and Jeannie met in 2003, volunteering for the inaugural Francisco's Farm Art Fair in Midway, of which Ouita was a founder. They developed Ouita's restaurant group marketing department a few years later when the company's expansion began in earnest. Jeannie's role expanded into creating their e-commerce division, which she now runs, and Jeannie lives in Midway with her husband, Matthew, sports editor at the Herald Leader. Thank you, Jeannie. And then last but not least, we have Ouita Michel. Ouita is a restaurant owner and executive chef. Her restaurants, if you didn't already know, include Holly Hill Inn, Wallace Station Deli, Windy Corner Market, Smithtown Seafood, the Midway Bakery and Cafe, Honeywood, Zim's Cafe, and Thirsty Fox, and Holly Hill Events. Since 2001, when Ouita Michel and her husband Chris opened their flagship Holly Hill Inn in Midway, Kentucky, she has made locally grown ingredients a priority in her world-class cuisine. Michel's restaurants have purchased $3 million in Kentucky-grown meats, dairy, and produce. She has been a James Beard Foundation Award nominee numerous times, her most recent nomination in 2020 for Outstanding Restaurateur. Michel and her restaurants are regularly featured in media such as the New York Times, Southern Living, Garden and Gun, Food Network, and Cooking Channel. She was a guest judge on season 16 of Bravo's Top Chef. Ouita is very active in her community, serving on boards and participating in several programs that help educate, nourish, and celebrate folks in Kentucky and beyond. She, Chris, and their daughter Willa live in a 200-year-old cabin adjacent to the Holly Hill Inn in Midway. She is the author, along with Jeannie and Sarah, of Just a Few Miles South, Timeless Recipes from Our Favorite Places, a highly anticipated cookbook, which is scheduled to be released in April of this year. And that is why we're here tonight, to talk about that cookbook. So just, I I would like first for you all to tell us a little bit more about yourselves, maybe beyond that basic intro that I gave, and especially tell us why it made sense for the three of you all to collaborate on this cookbook together. So we'll start with Ouita.
Well, I'll just say this. If Jeannie and Sarah had not written the book, it would not have been able to be published. Honestly, so this is not one of my strong suits, details. Some details are my strong suit, but like Sarah will laugh, but recipe writing has never been my strong suit. I am a technique cook. So don't look at recipes. I very frequently, in fact, I think when we first met, Sarah, I didn't want any recipes, or I didn't really use recipes. And then, of course, that's a very immature attitude to have. And Sarah, quickly, I realized Sarah's great at writing recipes. Like, this was very early on. And so when we started opening, when we opened Windy Corner, Sarah was at Woodford Reserve at the time, but we had done several food consulting jobs together. Do you remember the burger project and all that stuff that we had done? So we had already done some of these more detailed projects, and she came to Windy Corner, and she helped me write all the recipes essentially for Windy Corner when that restaurant opened, and create a recipe book. So that was the first time that I remember in our company that I felt like, oh, we're getting bigger. We need to probably write a few of these recipes down, because up until that time, like my sister Paige and her husband Jared opened Wallace, and Jared was an outstanding chef, and he had his own bank of recipes, and he and I had worked so closely together, I didn't need to give him a recipe for anything, really. Those recipes he and I kind of developed together. But then once we grew up out of the Wallace Station, Holly Hill Inn, duality into Windy Corner, and then Smithtown Seafood and the bakery, then Sarah really took on that role of writing those recipes and helping those restaurants get open, codifying the recipes, going back over and correcting them. So she did all the restaurant size recipes, and we talked about writing this book together for a long time, and we worked on the book actually for 6 years. But just a lot of stuff happens. We opened a few restaurants. My mom got sick, her mom and dad got sick. And so we lost family members, and we also just in coping with everything that was going on, we just didn't move very far. Then Jeannie got involved. So, everybody in Midway already knows, if you want a project to get done, you get Jeannie Graff involved in it.
That's very true.
And she's been doing that for me for years.
Ouita, I think we need a cookbook. 2012, 2013. Ouita, I think we need a cookbook. I know.
She eventually stopped talking to me and just started talking to Sarah.
Yes.
It's true. That's true. And so that is, the three of us are good friends. We love one another. And at least I love that you're looking at my right and left hand. You put Donna Hecker on the screen, and you've got my right leg as well. Ouita Michel at this point is like the Wizard of Oz. Ouita Michel is a character. I really am this other person, but the media character of Ouita Michel is a creation of Jeannie Gross, and she lives in the Emerald City somewhere. But no, I think that we enjoy each other's company, but honestly, my point is that it takes a huge amount of effort and teamwork for anything to get done, especially cookbooks and recipes and restaurants and all that kind of stuff. And so Jeannie and Sarah have been right there in the middle of it for 12 years, 13 years, 14 years.
That's one thing, Ouita, that I've always noticed about you and had the privilege to witness, just being, in your church and part of your community, is that you seem to grow a village wherever you go. And I think you contribute so much to other people, but that's because you welcome in that input. And I think that that's a really great collaborative effort that you give. So just
makes it fun.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just move along a little bit unless Jeannie and Sarah have anything to add to that.
No,
Okay.
she spelled it out pretty well.
Well, you did kind of address this, but a lot of people said that this have said that this cookbook is a long time coming. So why now? Like, why is it finally come to fruition now?
I'll let Jeannie and
She
Sarah
finally
take it.
said, I'm not going to open any more restaurants.
Yeah, that's true. I kept saying, Ouita, we can do this, but you really need to stop opening restaurants because we need your attention.
I know.
You know, honestly, that is the lesson there. I think the lesson of 2020 for me has been one of sort of introspection and kind of figuring out, and I know everybody's gone through that process this past year. I just think it was a reaction to my mom passing. It was a way for me to handle the grief of, and I know everybody goes through that and we all handle it in different ways. And I just unfortunately opened 2 huge restaurants as a way of coping. And so once I could calm myself down and sort of just say, okay, no more, let's focus on what we have built already, making it better and better. And a cookbook is part of that. Then it came together pretty quickly, honestly.
We had so many recipes because people ask us for them all the time. So as we started doing the math to break them down so that people could make them at home, we just started building an archive of those things. And then we realized we had more than we thought. And so we might as well keep going.
Well, and the other thing is that I think you have to have, Sarah got settled in a certain way that allowed her to focus on the testing. There's one thing that the 3 of us all agreed on is it is easy to write a recipe. I could write a recipe right here in 30 seconds and send it off to a website and they'd put it up. The difficult thing is, are you going to write a quality recipe that works in a home kitchen and works over and over and over again? Now that is a different animal. And so Sarah and Jeannie really edited these recipes and tested them all in multiple times. And Sarah, you may want to tell people your testing methodology for all the recipes in this book, because I thought it was pretty amazing.
Well, gosh, Jeannie and I did some of them together in Jeannie's kitchen. And then, I mean, this has been going on, like she said, for 6 years. So it has changed over time how we did this. So actually I started some of them in Wallace with some of the guys in the kitchen there helped me because all the ingredients were there. It was the same recipes. It was just much smaller. So, but I kept spreadsheets and every time I made a recipe, I made notes on it and put a version on it and kept them all in a notebook. So it was very old school, paper and pen. And then once I got it to a point where I felt like it would work, then Jeannie and I found some other testers and they would work on them at home. Not everyone, but the ones that I thought were most difficult, we put out to other testers who had no experience, didn't know what it was supposed to taste like. I had the advantage of knowing what it was supposed to taste like and what it was supposed to look like. So then I had to make sure that was translated accurately on the page. So we're indebted to our testers as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I thought was very interesting in the whole process, because I am a home cook, I am not a trained chef, but it's not just doing the division for the home cook to take these recipes for big quantities and just dividing them by 30. You can't, it doesn't work that way. And I know in several of the recipes, Sarah and I found that, and I always thought it was so interesting at how much you would have to, how the math, it was more of a calculus than it was just a simple division. Sarah, how many times did we do the breads? Not the rye bread. The rye bread went really, it's delicious, it's fabulous. But the white and the wheat, Sarah kept saying, "Gah!"
And, well, part of the problem was going through 6 years. I would go into the bakery and interview the person who was making bread at the time. And so I went through several different bakers who had their own version and their own ideas of what made it work. And so the recipe ultimately is kind of a conglomerate of 3 or 4 different bakers and their techniques. But the one that I really remember is lemon bars. Lemon bars.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I ate so many lemon bars. Everybody I knew had lemon bars coming out their ears.
Painful.
Because
Yeah.
getting that balance of sweet and tang,
Yeah.
that was difficult.
Yeah.
Well, that's really interesting because I never would have thought about that aspect as far as making sure that you make this at big batches every day, but making sure people could make it in their home kitchen and that it would taste the same and be the same quality. That I don't think that would occur to most people. Like you said, you'd think we just break it up, but it's not always that simple.
Mm-mm.
We make 25 gallons of chili at a time, 25 gallons of pinto beans at a time. And yeah, it's a little different technique. And honestly, the recipes, when you make them in a larger quantities, are a little bit more forgiving. But also there's so much intuition that goes into the production every single time you make 25 gallons of chili. If you're a person that's made it many times, which we do have people who've made these recipes hundreds of times, and they're tasting against their memory. And then every now and then they have to check against the recipe. But like when you're trying to do a small batch of chili, maybe a gallon of chili, Sarah has to taste against her memory and taste against the recipe itself. But that's what makes the book so great. Honestly, we stand behind every single recipe in the book. And that's what took so long. Sarah she's very modest, but she was a cookbook editor. She's worked for the New York Times. She's editing or guest editing and testing and reading over cookbooks for Molly O'Neill, et cetera. So she has a lot of experience doing this. She's published her own cookbook. And so she had all the experience of testing those recipes and putting that cookbook together. So I knew for a long time that she would be the perfect co-author on the book. And then Jeannie, her professional experience was as an editor. So we had these people on our team. And I mean, that's an amazing thing, a gift to have that. One thing we've learned, I think, over doing the book is that we felt like newbies and first timers. And of course we were, but the next book, we won't be. So I think we realized that we knew more than that our judgment was more correct than we may have given ourselves credit for in this process. And so that's also a nice thing.
Yeah, that's always refreshing. So
Stacy, we laugh, and joke about these things, but the one thing that that what makes this book particularly good, I mean, the recipes they taste like what you would get at the restaurant. They're fantastic. They really are fantastic recipes. But the other thing is the stories behind the recipes. I mean, this is a story of a food culture. It's kind of a restaurant's food culture. It is an area food culture. There's some Appalachian food culture, Kentucky food culture, Southern food culture. And so I think it's an important important book.
Yeah.
And that's where, and Ouita appreciates that. That's one of the things that makes this such a good book, is she appreciates the stories. And so we were able to tell, so she remembered these stories. And so we were able to tell the stories. So that's what
that's kind of a good segue into my next question too, is a little more specifically about the cookbook. What makes it unique? How did you decide on the title? How does it flow? I know it's different recipes from your different restaurants, but are they grouped together? Is it like desserts and then main courses? The
book is about Wallace Station. Really, honestly and truly, the book is about Wallace Station and Wallace Station's little baby, Windy Corner, and Windy Corner's little brother, Smithtown Seafood. And then in telling that, the bakery was opened in order to support Wallace Station. When we first opened Wallace Station, it was the Country Deli and Bakery or something like that. And we baked all the bread there in that little kitchen, and we made all of the cookies, all of the lemon bars, all of the brownies, all of the muffins, everything. We were baking them in that little kitchen at Wallace Station, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. We had a baker named Nicholas Medina at the time who would show up and work all night long. He'd work overnight, and I shouldn't say this, but there's a lot of rowdy folks who can sometimes drive up and down Old Frankfurt Pike. And so, yeah, he kept a pistol with them. And if anybody pulled in the parking lot, he'd fire it in the air. Okay, but that's live on Facebook now for everyone to know. But Nicholas is not with us anymore. Sadly, he's passed away from a serious illness, but he was our kind of overnight bread baker for a long time. And Stella Parks, whose cookbook Brave Tart is one of the premier bakers in the country and a senior editor at Serious Eats, is also a Woodford Countyan, and was our first pastry chef at Wallace Station. And her book won a James Beard Award last year in 2019. I should say last year, I meant 2 years ago now. But so it is the story of how of all the different people who've cooked, or a lot of the different people who've cooked at Wallace Station, or at least made that impact, and at Windy Corner and at Smithtown, because we are a family of restaurants, and it makes me feel uneasy a lot of times, the whole Ouita Michel thing, because I work with so many talented people. So it was really rewarding to have Steve-O's, red eye gravy in there, and Jared's Whitesburg brown beans and cornbread, and Ethan's guacamole, and Sarah's mother, the Mabel's Nut Burger recipe is in there. So, and we didn't hold back. These recipes are don't you feel, Sarah, that these are like bread and butter recipes, our white bread, our wheat bread, our jumbo cookies, our...
Oh yeah, I kept saying it was my pandemic cookbook because we weren't going out anywhere, and I was cooking all those things. I mean, blueberry muffins, it's comfort food. I made a loaf of Wallace Station white bread every week. There were all those things in there. I was cooking all the time. I just made the Nebe black-eyed pea salad this weekend. I just keep going back to it. It's like my joy of cooking. That's what I keep saying. And
Yeah.
I agree with Ouita. Working with Ouita is wonderful because so many executive chefs would take credit for every single recipe that came out of the kitchen, whether they had created it or not. But she's always been so good to give people credit who came up with something that ended up on the menu. So many of the recipes in the book pay homage to the person who created it, whether they're still with the company or not. And I had the joy of going to the restaurants and standing over these people's shoulder and watching them cook and taking down their secrets and having just a wonderful time getting to know them and hear their story and learn their techniques. It was fabulous.
That's great. I love hearing how
Cheese recipe
personal
is
it is.
Yeah.
What's that, Ouita?
I said our pimento cheese recipe is even in there.
Oh, nice.
And I toyed with not putting it in there because I'm like, oh.
Well, that's what I wondered too. I mean, just are you giving away big secrets here that you felt like maybe you should have kept to yourself?
We are.
I don't think it's going to stop people from coming to the restaurants, but
no, I didn't think so either. I mean, well, so, it's 20 years of being in business this year. And it's time. I'm ready to start the Holly Ellen book now. And, but this is the book, Just a Few Miles South, that the title comes from, Jeannie picked the title. So it was her pick on this title. And the line came from, the inspiration behind Wallace Station was really, my husband, Chris, worked at a fabulous deli at the end of Long Island, where he's from, called Plain and Fancy, and owned by Dave and Maria Bernier, and they were very good friends of ours. And when we kept driving by Wallace Station, this would have been in 2003, maybe, or 2. And it was so cute. Larry Taylor and Denise Taylor had purchased the property and it was all fixed up. We didn't know anything about it. And we finally one day called the number on the window that says for rent number. And so, of course, Larry called us right away and we went inside and it was so cute. It reminded Chris of Plain and Fancy Catering in East Hampton, Long Island. And so I think in writing that story and telling the story of Plain and Fancy, I said that Wallace was always to us inspired by Plain and Fancy, just a few miles south. And Jeannie said, oh, that should be the name of the book. And so that's how the book got named. But Zingerman's Deli in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Plain and Fancy in East Hampton, Long Island were both very influential in the way we thought about that Wallace Station and Windy Corner.
Well, I was wondering, because I'm not a very good cook, and sometimes cookbooks are intimidating because they have a lot of long processes in it, or ingredients that I don't have, ingredients that are kind of hard to find. How would you describe this cookbook? Is it for your average home cook? Do you need to have a little more expertise in cooking, or can just anyone pick up this book and cook something?
Jeannie, you answer.
Yep. Anybody could pick up this cookbook and do it. The recipes are not daunting. I think that's one of the things that Sarah made sure of. And if anything was super weird, we didn't put it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. Putting in a recipe requires an ingredient that you're never going to use again.
Right.
So we were pretty careful about knowing that, it's a relationship. It's an intimate relationship. You're asking someone to trust you to go out and spend money and buy ingredients and do this thing because you're telling them that it's good. So I take that seriously and try to make sure that they always work, and we're not asking them to buy things that are going to sit in the refrigerator for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple of ways of looking at cookbooks, and I think you bring up a good point, Stacy. There are books that I have probably close to 4,000 cookbooks in my library at this point. And there are books that I have that are, and like I said, I'm not a big recipe person. So I may read through a book and then just make it, not necessarily from the recipe, but there are books that you might have in your collection that are like the Fat Duck, like Heston Blumenthal's book, or there are a lot of extremely beautiful chef books that are out there, and those books are wonderful for inspiration or to show you. Or you may have a book about Japanese cuisine, or you may have a book about a different Spanish cuisine, and they're sort of opening the window on a culture, or they may be showing you a chef's biography. It's like a biography of that chef, and so those kinds of books are more professional or inspiration books that you're reading for pleasure, but you're not really cooking out of. And I think the thing that's really great about this book, but I'm way too pragmatic, and I know Jeannie and Sarah, we're all pragmatists to write a book like that. But also, this book is a great book for kids. It is a wonderful book for the whole family. So you could give this to Chase and tell him that you want the country ham scones for breakfast tomorrow, and he could read that recipe and go into the kitchen and do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
And tell him, I fully expect to see that on Facebook, that he's done that. But that's the kind of book this is. It's a great family cookbook. And it has a lot of great recipes all the way through for that kind of cooking.
I think that's great.
And be sure and take a pencil and mark down which of these recipes, the date that you made them, and what you're going to make it for next. Or we're going to make this every Christmas, something like that. Yeah. I write all my cookbooks.
Yeah.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
I think that's great. And those are great to pass down too.
Yes.
To have like your grandmother's cookbook with those handwritten notes in there.
Mm-hmm.
Cookbooks I always thought were really great things to hand down from generation to generation. Maybe to step away from the cookbook for just a minute and talk a little bit about the restaurant business and the pandemic. It's obvious that obviously the pandemic has really changed the way that you all do business. Can you talk just a little bit about some of the changes that you think might stick around, even when we get back to some sense of normalcy at some point?
Well, yes. Jeannie mentioned at the top of the show that she was the director of our special projects, and I just have to give her a community shout out. When we shut down March 13th, by March 18th, Jeannie had all our menus online for online order and pay. And so she's had this online sales thing as a dream. Again, another thing that she's nagged me about for years.
True. I'm a pest.
And I'm always like, yeah, but what about fulfillment? I don't know if I want to do it, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, she has developed the online retail to an amazing, she's really focused on that and the cookbook. and to the benefit of the business, because she was able to create a revenue stream for us that's been a lifeline through the whole year. And that's not going to go away. In fact, that's only going to grow. That's going to get bigger and bigger in our company. And that's been
Jeannie, you have to make noise so that people can see that.
I have to do what?
Yep, there you go. Now hold it up. You have to talk because nobody can see it. There you
This
go.
says keep calm and carry out. I saw this yesterday at a shop here at Amelia Island, and I had to get it.
So that'll stay. And I think all of our online sales, we wanted to do that for so long, and the pandemic forced us into it a little faster than we would have liked, but we got it done, and we'll keep that. We've been involved in the Delivery Co-op, which is a cooperatively owned delivery app in Lexington, unfortunately not in Woodford County yet. That will change, if we can make this thing successful, will change the way restaurants can deliver and get away from these corporate delivery apps that absolutely they cannibalize local restaurants. So if you're a DoorDash person, we don't do DoorDash, we don't do Uber Eats. And the reason is because those things make you operate at a loss. And so we simply cannot do that. And the Delivery Co-op is a whole different model for that. And I'm looking forward to seeing that grow. And I am thrilled to be a part of it. And it started right here in Lexington. And it has capacity to change the way we think about delivery and driving and delivery drivers completely across the country. And I think it'll be really exciting to see that spread. So all of those are here to stay. I mean, outdoor dining's here to stay. We're at Holly Hill, and we've never paid a lot of attention to outdoor dining until this year. But we're going to be really working on beautifying the front porch and getting the side patio finally all fixed up. And and we're opening an art gallery at the Holly Hill Inn, which I'm very excited about. My dad is, not going to be able to do craft shows anymore. He's feeling kind of worn out with that. So we are installing the Ray Papka Art Gallery as we speak in several of the dining rooms downstairs and the entire upstairs. So we're going to be putting in new lighting and having gallery hours and orienting the Holly Hill Inn around art on the walls and art on the plate and local pottery and poetry and all those kinds of things that mean so much to all of us and mean so much to me, actually, really. And without the pandemic, I'm not sure I would have had the focus to really think through those things.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And that really, one of my questions was just to make an observation that your brand has always been about much more than just food, I feel like. And so just to talk a little bit about your passion and going forward, what do you expect? So that sounds like the Holly Hill Inn kind of re-envisioning some of the things, the way you serve people there is something that will change.
We have a theme, but from the time of getting shut down, I mean, I can't say that it wasn't nerve-wracking. I know every single person, including Jeannie and Sarah, and all of us have had struggles this past year with isolation, with all the things, our kids being home, with everything. But for us, from the very beginning we've got to come back better. How are we going to come back better? And just letting the young people in our company, honestly, have been our guiding star. I mean, they're out there, they're working those counters. I couldn't be more proud of them. They are dealing with people who don't want to wear masks in a restaurant. Yeah. So I've got 16-year-olds finding their voices at the front door saying, "I'm sorry, sir, put this mask on." Yeah, it's hard. It's the whole thing, but it's, I can't remember where I was going with that, Stacy. Sorry.
Okay. Right. Well, one thing I was going to mention with your the changes during the pandemic is we really enjoyed the family meals that have been.
Yeah, those are here to stay.
Yeah, we love that. Those burgers from Wallace Station, I think, are our Friday night staple. So I think that's a great idea and great marketing right now. For people. So somebody wants to know, will you do a cookbook for each restaurant eventually?
Well, we are going to work on the Holly Hill Inn cookbook. It's time when, I guess me saying this right now is me asking Sarah, are you ready to start on the Holly Hill? Yes, we have that tale to tell, don't we, Sarah?
We do.
Yeah. But not every restaurant needs their own book. I mean, Holly Hill Inn is our mothership, and because its menu has changed, and it has a young chef in charge, and because it's 20 years in operation and its menu has changed every single week for 20 years. And I will say the Holly Hill Inn has not missed a single week of service in 2020. So we've shrunk our hours down to weekend hours, but we never closed the Holly Hill Inn. So I think that I'm not sure that we need to have a specific cookbook for each restaurant, because Wendy and Wallace and Zim's and Smithtown are very related to one another. Now Honeywood maybe needs its own cookbook, and Holly Hill Inn definitely needs its own cookbook. But I figure we're probably only got maybe one good book left in us after this last one. No, that could be wrong. Well, I'd really love to write a book of poetry of using Kentucky poets with the menus and recipes that match the menus. That's another dream of mine, but we'll see.
Well, speaking of Kentucky writers, Silas House wrote the foreword for your book. Is that correct?
It's wonderful.
So maybe talk a little bit about that, and then maybe anybody else that you want to give a shout out to that was instrumental in the writing process.
Well, Silas and I are on the board of the Heinemann Settlement School, and this book is a project of Fireside Industries, which is a collaborative project between the Heinemann Settlement School and UK and the University Press of Kentucky. And so that means the Heinemann Settlement School gets a little percentage of each sale of the book, which means a great deal to me. And Silas and I met. Well, he knew my mom as got their MFAs together, but he also and we become friends through the Heinemann Settlement School. So that's been it was a wonderful tribute. But one of the things that I think makes our book super special, incredibly visually special, are these illustrations that were done by Brenna Flannery, who is a young artist in Lexington. I'll actually show you that I did get a COVID tattoo. You can see it. It's a dandelion. Brenna is a tattoo artist. Her fiance is Tyler McNabb, who's our chef at Holly Hill. And Brenna did the drawings for this book, and they are phenomenal. So the book is in black and white, but there's drawings on every page. I see Sarah nodding. Yes, there.
We made sure of that.
They're beautiful, beautiful drawings on every page. And they take a traditional format and these recipes, a lot of which are very traditional in this area, and make them very, I think, appealing to a new younger generation and new audience. So yeah, we're very pleased to have both Silas's foreword and Brenna's illustrations in the book.
It does sound like a beautiful book in many ways. Where and when can I get the cookbook? Somebody wants to know.
Jeannie?
You can pre-order online at outamichel.com. Right now we're doing pre-orders. If you ship the book, anyone who orders right now will get a signed copy of the book. You can order it shipped, or if you order it pickup, and shipping is included with the price online. It's $30.95 online for a shipped copy, and then it's $24.95 for a pickup copy. Pickup copy, you pick it up at Phasig Tipton is where we're having launch parties in late April. We have one April 22nd and April 23rd, and then we may add the 21st. I'm not sure yet. It just depends on if we have that availability. The 23rd is sold out. The 22nd is close to being sold out. But, and we don't know what it's going to look like yet because of COVID and the vaccine. It could be a drive-through event. It could be a hybrid of people who aren't comfortable with coming in and getting their book. But again, they will all be signed by the bone weary Ouita. I have many Sharpies for you, Ouita.
I mean, I think I've had several of our merchants downtown tell me they're going to carry the book. And any merchant, and I'll just say this, anyone in Midway that's carrying that book, I'll get down there and sign them. Whatever, you bring it up to Holly Hill some point and I'll sign it for you. But we are going to have several book signing events at all the different restaurants as well. So we'll do it all around at all the restaurants, and then you'll be able to still buy it online. Once we get our hands on copies,
Yes.
they'll be available at all the restaurants for purchase. And you know, I think downtown there's going to be like 3 or 4 places that are going to carry it as well. Which
So plenty of opportunities to buy locally. No need to go to Amazon.
Right.
Very good. There was a question, I think you touched on this, but are the recipes attributed to the restaurants where it originated? I guess within the cookbook, do you get an idea of where that recipe came from?
Yes, we wrote extensive head notes to tell, because every recipe has a story. And so we wrote who came up with it, where it was served. So yeah, there's a lot of information in the head notes that'll tell you why it's so special.
Very good. Good. I like all the personal touches. I think it's perfect. I don't see any more questions, but I just wanted to ask, and there might be a couple more that come in, but one thing, it's just because I want to end on a positive note, but 2020 was so difficult, and I know it was very difficult for anyone in the restaurant business. But what was something positive, and it doesn't have to be restaurant or book related, that came out of 2020 for you, if you don't mind each answering something that'll stick with you that was a good thing?
Well, I'll go first. Well, you know, I have to say that once we got over the initial anxiety in March, the whole year was a blessing for me. I mean, it wasn't easy always, but in many ways, the innovations and the teamwork, the time I got with my family, because for me, it was a lot, because our business volume was down, I was able to spend more time at home, and I really enjoyed that. So there are a lot of silver linings, and the time to spend thinking about how I want to become more intentional in my life. I don't want to have huge, giant things at Holly Hill. I just want Holly Hill. I want to be intentional about what I'm doing. I want everything to be, I lost focus. I will say this. I lost focus a little bit before, when we were talking about having so many restaurants and just being on this treadmill. For me personally, there was a quiet that descended in March. I'm not saying it wasn't anxiety ridden at times, but it just was like, and I felt like it really helped me think about what I really wanted to pursue for the last part of my career, which is where I am right now. And I feel like I have a good sense of what that is. That was my silver lining.
Very good. Sarah or Jeannie, do you have anything you'd want to throw in there?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Well, I was grateful that we had already established the ability for us to work together remotely.
Yes.
So that we transitioned right into, it actually gave us time to finish the book because we were all home more. And it gave me time to test, calmly and rationally. And, it also made me grateful that I was part of this restaurant family, because I live in Florida and I haven't been here very long. And I realized that I did not know the restaurants here. I did not trust them enough to order from them. I have not had a meal out or ordered out since March of last year, because I don't know the chefs well enough and their protocols. If I had been in Kentucky, and I'm sure that's why Ouita's having success, people trust her. She's been transparent. She has a long history of serving the communities well, and so people feel comfortable going out. So I missed that, but I was grateful to be part of it from afar.
I agree with Sarah. I was grateful that we did have the time to be able to finish the cookbook, and because we did have a relationship to where we could work remotely, that was huge. The other thing that was, I mean, it really was gratifying. It was hard. I don't want to sugarcoat it. The restaurant business, especially for what, anything I had to do with it, was difficult. But we were really gratified, and I mean, almost brought to tears sometimes by the notes people would write us, thanking us for either being open, like, so you could get your Wallace Station fix, or some of the things that we've done online, like these cookie boxes, the notes that people would send with the Mother's Day cookie boxes. You just sit there every day going, oh, that's so sweet. And it happened throughout the year because people aren't able to be with their loved ones, and they were just appreciative to be able to send some Kentucky elsewhere. And that was very humiliating. That not humiliating, but that was humbling to be a part of that process.
And that's such a good point, is that food is so comforting to us, especially our favorite foods. And at a time when we felt like we didn't have any control of anything else,
right,
to be able to order some of our favorite foods and to know, like Sarah said, that it's from a trusted place, people that, care about the community and what they're putting out there. It does mean a lot. It's more than just food.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Stacy, I think one of the things that we learned as a community is how much we mean to our community. I mean, Midway with the Midway Bucks and the Woodford County Fiscal Court, with their grants to the local restaurants in Woodford County. We had customers giving us thousands of dollars for our larder, which is a fund that we use to pay all of our service employees health insurance for almost the entirety of 2020, and still doing so today, and help with Visa cards, Kroger cards, family meals, the check just that someone needs because their unemployment benefits were delayed or didn't get through. And that floored me. And for the longest time we had to do some repainting at Holly Hill, but we just had cards. We probably had 20 cards of folks, just our customers and our townspeople that wrote to us that were all up there. Just amazing, really, honestly. The outreach of the people in our community has been amazing. And I'm not sure that we always know that what we do matters to anybody. I mean, you have a tendency to judge it by sales or something like that. But this year, we really learned how much we meant to people. Mm-hmm. And it meant the world to us. And it's what's been keeping us going.
Good. Well, I think that is a very good, positive way to wrap up the program. I will mention that that Penny Woods commented that she'll be reviewing the cookbook for Kentucky Living.
Oh,
there you go.
Good.
And remember that you can go out and pre-order the cookbook through outamichel.com. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And then buy it locally. And I can't wait to get a copy for the library and a copy for my kitchen.
Well, we'll sign the copy for the library.
Nice. I'm sure it will circulate a lot, as all of our cookbooks do. Thank you, ladies, very much for taking the time to be with us tonight. It was nice talking to you and just spending some time. I hope that you all enjoy the rest of your evening. It's raining cats and dogs here right now in Midway.
Oh my.
Stay warm.
It's a cold, hard rain.
It is.
Teeny Grog, Sarah, Florida, baby.